Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Hi, everyone. I'm Deb Flashenberg. Welcome to Yoga, Birth, Babies, a podcast produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. We will be diving into everything prenatal yoga, birth, and baby related, hoping to inspire, educate, and empower you through your journey into motherhood. Thank you for listening. Hi, I'm Deb Flashenberg. I'm your host for Yoga, Birth, Babies. And today, we have such a special podcast. We have a birth story, and not just a birth story, a moving birth story that literally brought tears to my eyes, and I was awestruck listening to it. So the birth story comes from my friend, Kat Acquaviva. I've known Kat for over 10 years. She did our teacher training 10 years ago. She worked at the studio. I've had the joy of watching her now through 2 pregnancies and babies, and she's a really special person. So Kat, for the past 10 years, has been a yoga teacher in New York City and Los Angeles and specializes in vinyasa, prenatal, and postnatal yoga. Kat has taught and wrote the curriculum for 12 separate teacher training programs in her 10 years as a teacher, guiding students through intelligent sequencing and articulate pedagogy. And her intrinsic interest in birth has led her to take 2 separate birth and postpartum doula certifications through Dona International and Doula Trainings International. But more importantly, she just had a baby last week. And I was so excited to speak with her. Her 2 births could not be more different, and her approach to these 2 births that she's had could not be more different. So she shared a little bit about her first birth and then her approach to her second birth, and she actually sent me some videos to see of her second birth, and I was awestruck. I think you're really going to enjoy this special story from an incredible person. Before we get to that, I want to say thank you. We've had the most amazing people showing up for class, and I am loving that people from all over the world are coming to class. And one of our students, Sophie, hi Sophie, is taking class with us online, and she is from New Hampshire. And she told me she started to listen to the podcast. Yay! And she wrote a really awesome review. So I want to read to you what she said. She says, "How is this free? This podcast contains the wisdom of hundreds of paid classes. Deb covers every topic about birth and babies through a thought-provoking, insightful, and evidence-based lens. I know I can trust the material coming out of this podcast, and in a sea of judgments and shoulds around pregnancy, birth, and babies, it is so helpful to have a North Star. I have also gotten so much out of Deb's prenatal yoga classes. Yay, thank you. If you're pregnant or a new mom, finding Prenatal Yoga Center is a lifesaver. Thank you, Deb and PYC team. Thank you, Sophie, for leaving that rating and review. If you're listening to this podcast, I am asking you for the favor of jumping over to wherever you're listening to it from and leaving a rating and review. And I want to thank you for being a listener and for being part of our community. So also speaking of community, it is growing. It is so exciting to see that. And our teacher training community is continuously growing. We are just moving through these, and I'm meeting the most amazing people, again, from all over the world. Our last training had someone from Switzerland. We had a couple people from Canada. This next upcoming training, I can't remember specifically, I think she's from Ecuador. But how cool is that we can connect through Zoom, through this new technology, and still work really intimately with one another. So our January, February training is starting soon, but we've got one more of the year for March and April. I have no idea what's going to happen in the fall. I don't know if we'll be back to face-to-face. I don't know if we'll still be online. I have no idea, but check it out if you are interested in our teacher training at prenatalyogacenter.com. And we've got a ton for yoga teachers, whether you want to specialize in prenatal or just have the skills to teach a pregnant person in class. And then again, all of our pre and postnatal and baby and me yoga classes are online, as well as all of our workshops. And we actually have, I'm just going to wrap it up super quickly, but we have 2 new workshops I'm really excited about. We have a 1-day childbirth intensive. It used to be, for the last 18 years, a 2-day weekend intensive, but I get it. People don't want to be on Zoom all weekend. So we shaved it down. It is a 1-day express. Check that out. And then we have a new workshop called Comforting Touch. It is led by a doula who's also an acupuncturist, and she has a background in massage. So she's taking all of those skills and she put it into one workshop. So we get coping skills, massage techniques, and acupressure that she'll be teaching you. So it's really great. It's called Comforting Touch. You can find that on our website. Okay, we're going to take a super quick break, and when we come back, please enjoy this incredible birth story with Kat.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Hi, Kat. I am so excited to speak with you. How are you?
I'm doing really well in the newborn haze, but in total newborn love high right now. So
Yay!
It's a good place to be in.
It totally is. Oh, all that oxytocin going. So as we were talking about before we started recording, you've been listening to the podcast for a while. I mean, I guess we should even go you and I have known each other for 10 years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's about that. Because it was right when I did my teacher training, my first priority was to do a prenatal training after I graduated my 200 hour. And that was in 2010. So 10 years ago. Oh my goodness.
And a brief stint as our marketing person. Uh-huh. Was that before or after?
That was before
your training. Okay.
Yeah. And then, because I remember signing myself up for the training at the studio.
You'd be like, I'm behind the desk. I'll just sign myself right up.
It's true. Yeah.
In fact, I'm very impressed that you didn't then be like, hey, all the tests and quizzes are here.
Oh, come on.
I know you would never do that. I know you would never do that. But it's been amazing to watch you go on this trajectory of having one child and then another, and watch you grow as a teacher. So as we were talking, that you just had your baby a week and a half ago?
A week ago today.
A week ago. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing that through the pandemic, I could still see you in class. That's been great.
I know that really was a silver lining, with all the complications and challenges that this year has brought everybody, that was really a blessing. I was thinking about that as it related to my first pregnancy and my first birth, that I didn't have you as a resource and the experience of, practicing with PYC again, because we weren't doing the online thing. So it was like a blessing to be able to reconnect with this community that really started me on this path and this journey.
That's so great. I loved it. I loved when I saw your name first pop into the roster. I'm like, oh my God, I get to see Kat. So I know about you, but how about you tell the listeners a little bit about you? And then we're going to talk about not just your recent birth, which I'm super excited to talk about, but also your first birth and how things were different the second time around. So let's start with just a little bit about you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, my name is Kat Acquaviva. I am a yoga teacher, like I said, for the past 10 years, starting out in New York City and then eventually moving to Los Angeles, where I lived the past 6 years. I teach vinyasa yoga, but super passionate about prenatal yoga, postnatal yoga, and all things really related to pregnancy. So, lots of other parts of my career that I won't mention at this time, but what I'm most excited about is I'm amidst a full spectrum doula training right now, and I'm finally ready to pursue this as a career path starting in the new year. So I'm really pumped about that, especially after, a very recent birth experience.
That is so great. Because did you do birth doula work before, correct?
I did, but really, it was in 2008, I did a DONA training, and I was like, I don't have enough life experience. I'm not ready for this yet. So that's actually when I kind of shifted gears, and I knew I wanted to stay in the birth world, but that's when I decided to, study prenatal yoga. And that kind of satiated my need for being involved in this, area. And I had so many students ask me to be their doula, and I said no so many times. But now I'm ready for it. So it's very exciting.
That is so exciting. All right. So we're going to talk birth. It's funny because I know you had moved to LA when you had your first child. So I didn't get to see you, but through social media, I did. Like I was a bit of a voyeur that way. So, and I know, I believe your first child also was past the due date. Is that correct?
She was. Yeah, she certainly was. Pan came a little sooner, but Everly, my daughter, she was born at 42 weeks and 4 days. Okay. So she was quite late. I was induced at 42 and 2.
Okay. So let's hear a little bit of an abridged version of that birth.
Sure. Yeah. So that birth was radically different from this one in that, I kind of put a lot of faith in what I already knew from my years of studying prenatal yoga and sitting through childbirth education classes at Prenatal Yoga Center and, all the books I had read, just satiating my own, passion for all things pregnancy. And I had been practicing prenatal yoga, but I didn't do like a ton of preparation as far as like learning pain coping skills. And I think that was something that was really necessary. I had a doula, but I was like greatly underprepared for the challenges that an induction would bring. So I was desperately hoping for a mechanical induction. So that I could avoid medications. My vision was to have an unmedicated birth, and, was really inspired by, my mom having 4 natural births. And it was something that I just really wanted for myself. And probably, put way too much pressure on myself to like, quote unquote achieve. So, I went in for my induction after, telling doctors, no, I'm comfortable waiting. I know I'm past due. It's fine. I'm going to wait this out because I really wanted my body to go into labor naturally. Didn't happen. So when I went in, I was not dilated enough to have like a Foley balloon. So they started with Cervidil and set me up with the expectation that, okay, we'll check in 12 hours. You'll probably need a second dose. We'll see if it's, making an effect at all. So they placed the Cervidil, and 45 minutes later, I was having contractions or waves every 2 minutes, and was really intense, just like from 0 to 60 really quickly. So I labored like that for it was probably around 8 hours. And at the 8-hour mark, I started losing the break in between my contractions, and they were pretty much right on top of each other. And what this was doing was causing heart decelerations for my daughter, of course. So it was one intervention after the next from that point forward. Whole bunch of doctors and nurses running in and getting me on my hands and knees, shoving my chest down onto the bed, giving me an oxygen mask, giving me the terbutaline to slow down the contractions and, let her heart rate recover, and then Pitocin because my contractions stopped, and then the whole thing all over again. And
that must have been so overwhelming.
Yeah, it was like, all of the things that you kind of fear when someone really wants an unmedicated birth. And so it was like, one thing after the next that I just had to like roll with the punches, and the whole time you're knowing like, no matter what, I just want this to turn out okay. But I did have faith in the fact that like, she's strong and this will turn out okay. Like I did have that in the back of my mind. At one point, the doctor came in and she was like, we need to talk about a cesarean. And, if this happens again and we can't get her heart back on the map, then it's an emergency situation. And, a question that I asked in the moment is like, well, what's the difference between an emergency cesarean and a planned cesarean? And the first thing she said to me was, well, there will be adequate time to numb you. And I was like, okay, well, so we had this conversation, she left, and my husband and I and my mom, who was there as well, we all talked it over with our doula, and I decided that I wanted to wait and not schedule a cesarean. And if it happened again, if her heart, dropped again and it was really, looking like it was heading in that direction, we would schedule it. And it never happened again. So I was able to have a vaginal birth, which I was really grateful for. But I had been on an epidural for several hours, and it was slightly less, it was slightly better, I should say, slightly better than the discomfort of the labor. But I really hated the feeling of like being numb and unable to move. That was like not cool. So that was my experience with Everly. And it was like very much not what I envisioned. The positive takeaway was that we felt really respected and, listened to, which is really important. But, this time around, I wanted something completely different for everyone's experience.
So let's talk about that. What did you learn from your first birth that you've said, okay, I'm going to try this differently? And then how did you approach your second birth differently? And I know you did hypnobirthing this time, and I saw the pictures and the videos. I'm like, I was pretty in awe. So let's open that up.
I am too, actually. So I guess my preparation started like well before it was like at the end of my pregnancy. I had that first experience as my context. And so I did everything that I could to get my cervix in a favorable place. So, I did all the things from 36 weeks on. I was eating my 6 dates a day. I was using 1,500 milligrams of evening primrose oil up the hatch 3 times a day. I was going for walks every day, lots of sex for the prostaglandins, even though it's like not easy at that point in your life.
Let's just take a beat and I've told people that, and I've had 2 kids myself. I remember at 40 weeks, you're like, it's about getting the job done. I like that you just put, not easy. No, get the job done.
It's so true. It's so true. So yeah, and lots of prenatal yoga, going on walks every day. I know there's so many other things that I did that I'm not thinking of at the moment. Oh, lots of red raspberry leaf tea, like 4 cups a day. Mm-hmm. And, just doing anything I could to know that like, okay, I've put myself in the best position that I possibly can. And that's good. Even just knowing that creates like a more positive mindset, and there's no regrets, I don't have to look back and say, oh, I should have eaten the dates that I just, they're disgusting to me, but I still eat them. So, but more important than all of that, I decided to do the Hypnobabies program. So from what I understand, hypnobirthing and Hypnobabies have essentially the same philosophy, but Hypnobabies is way more rigorous. So it's a full childbirth education program. I bought the home study course. Usually people go in person, but pandemic times mean you do it on your own. So it's a really comprehensive program, and I was really impressed with, the kind of information and how it was presented, and not just like, here's what happens physiologically, but also touching on your nutrition and your physical health, and how you can get your baby optimally positioned. It was like a really wonderful amount and quality of information. And you have these hypnosis tracks that you start practicing. So it's about, you have like your big hypnosis track that you do every day, which is anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. And then you have your techniques that you practice putting yourself into hypnosis. So they use a lot of different methods like cue words, and something called the finger drop method, where you literally just lift your index finger, and when it drops, you visualize like a light switch turning off. And you're conditioning your mind and your physical body to kind of use your willpower to remain loose and limp anytime your switch is off and anytime you're in hypnosis. So you practice that in the beginning before you learn that there's also a center switch where you can stay deep in hypnosis, but you can, reposition your body if you're uncomfortable, or you can tell your care provider something if they ask you a question, or, whatever it is. So you're using these hypnosis tracks on a daily basis, and you're really reprogramming your subconscious to think about birth in a really positive way. So there's all of these new terminology for birth. You're not laboring, it's your birthing time, and you're not having contractions, you're having pressure waves or birthing waves. And it really helps you to kind of reframe what you're about to experience. And then in addition to that, there's 45 minutes of positive affirmations that you listen to on a daily basis. So it's a big time commitment. And I fully committed to it, like thinking that, I had one friend who had used Hypnobabies in the past, and she had 2 daughters using Hypnobabies, and she sent me some videos that I was like blown away by. It looks like she's napping in bed, and she's 8 centimeters dilated, and so I was like, I'm trying that. So this was my biggest way that I prepared myself for this second birth. Also, I had to do everything I could to kind of stay out of the fear zone, because I felt intuitively like this is going to be I think I have long pregnancies. Like that's what I intuitively was feeling. So the fear of induction was definitely like bubbling under the surface, but I was trying to stay away from that. I should mention that there are fear clearing tracks, and
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that was something I was going to ask, because your first birth was not what you had envisioned, and it definitely had some twists and turns. And I'm imagining from that there might have been some fears of repeating what you had done the first time, having that again. So tell me about the tracks, and how did you identify some of those fears ahead of time, besides just long labors or not long labors, long pregnancies? And how did you work through that?
Oh, definitely. So that was like, I kind of held in my mind for like future pregnancies before I was actually pregnant, like, I'm going to have the dream birth that I wanted, and I'm going to feel what it's like for my body to go into labor on its own, and to, feel that gradual process versus like 0 to 60. And so as like time was creeping on, and I'm 37 weeks, 38 weeks, 39 weeks, 40, 41, then it starts to get really real. So past 40 weeks, I started listening to a hypnosis track called Baby Come Out, where, it's another 45-minute track that you add to your daily list of things that you're doing and listening to. And it's like you're talking with your baby and you're listening to your baby for any downloads that they're giving you about why they're not ready to come out yet. Or, and there's a fear clearing element where you envision like a big movie screen, like you're gone to the movies and you put your fear up on the screen and you just really face it essentially. And then you picture it just getting smaller and smaller. The color draining becomes black and white, and then it just kind of moves away from you. And it's a nice way to kind of know that, like, yes, there are fears, but you have control over how you respond to them more than anything. Mm-hmm. So the other big difference in how I approached this fear was using midwifery care this time. So instead of seeing OBGYNs, which I've absolutely loved our OB in Los Angeles, he was wonderful, and voted in his class most likely to become a midwife. He shared with us. But the midwifery care that we had during this pregnancy was really supportive and really encouraging, and they really helped to alleviate some of those fears. So, yeah,
that's a lot. And that absolutely is. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the pause of like, okay, the first time still you were respected, you felt supported, you felt heard, but didn't necessarily want to repeat that. And so a different process. And you've watched me now through 2 pregnancies, so I can relate. My first one was very long, and I carried a lot of fear of like, I don't know if I can do that again. I don't. And I remember my midwife's like, so what is your biggest fear? I'm like, I just don't know if I can do it again. Cause the healing for me, because I pushed for hours. 5
hours?
5 hours. I did. Thank you. Thank you for remembering that. Yeah, 5 hours.
Well, you don't forget a detail like that.
And I'm like, my pelvic floor is like down to my ankles. Like I was a hot mess. And I had a big fear of I can't do it again. She's like, what if you have to, like what that is? And I'm like, I guess I'm just going to have to face it and do it. And so that's why I was so interested to hear how it was different for you. Cause I know your birth was also long, and I was gathering as you and I talked even before. I'm like, I'm sorry that I'm putting this on you for my own brain that you don't want it the same way. And you're like, nope. Yeah. So that is why I was curious.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure you experienced this, but we don't have control.
Yes. And that is hard.
We don't get to choose. Yeah. So like past a certain point, you're just driving yourself crazy, right? To just keep fearing what you can't control anyway. So it's like, okay, yeah, this fear is there, but like in the end, I just have to let it go and have a little bit of faith that like, it's going to happen as it's meant to happen. And I'll deal with whatever challenge comes about this time.
But what I do appreciate, and I also was able to do, is I recognize I could set myself up in a different manner than I had the first time. So I did a ton of body work. I did acupuncture. I did acupuncture both, but I did a ton of chiropractic and physical therapy, because when I stepped back, I'm like, I could have aligned my body better so that the baby could be better aligned. And I felt like if I at least took those steps, kind of like what you said, like you ate the dates because you didn't want to go back and like, oh, could I've eaten 2 more dates? So like I did the things that I felt were helpful. So should it be the same? At least I know I tried. And that's kind of sounds like the approach that you took as well.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And, yeah, you like remind me that I wish I could have done a little bit more, but pandemic times mean you could, I went to pelvic floor therapy and then was like, feels dangerous. Like I'm exposing myself too much, I
remember you and I talked about that because we are in the middle of a pandemic, and like, I remember you saying like, going to the chiropractor, going to the acupuncture. It's a lot more to take into consideration. All right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to hear the birth story. Yay! All right. So take a super quick break. We'll be right back.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry. We were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right. ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Okay, so I am elated. I'm like bubbling to hear this because you were kind enough to send me these videos of you in labor. And yeah, you don't really like, I have now seen, as a doula, I've seen over 100 births. I had seen a very small handful of what I would call like almost like an orgasmic birth. My friend Liz was just like in this altered state, and it was fascinating. I was with her for all 3 kids. Her middle one, altered state. I'd seen a few others that were just in this zone, but you almost took it to a different zone. So like a deep twilight zone. So let's hear about it.
So I was thinking about, how do you tell a birth story? Because there's like what's happening physiologically and, with on the medical side of things, and then what's happening personally.
I want to hear what's happening
within your own experience.
Personally.
So, I feel like I should paint it a little bit with some details about what was happening. So I went in before that, my birthing waves started exactly a week ago on a Wednesday at 3:30 in the morning. And I had mentioned to you in a yoga class that like I was having lots of really strong Braxton Hicks for like 48 hours. When these birthing waves started, I felt like, okay, these are different. They feel like really low in my uterus, and they were menstrual related, like sensationally, but definitely different. So I ignored them and thought like, okay, I'm envisioning a really fast labor. So let me get some rest right now. So I just slept as much as I can, and the waves continued to come every 15 minutes. And but I would like drift off to sleep in between. And when I woke up the next morning, it was so beautiful. It had started snowing, and it was like this kind of whimsical look outside. And my daughter was so excited. It was the first snow she had really seen, and it felt like a special day. So my dad like made this beautiful breakfast, and we were all, by the wood stove, and it was so cozy, and I was feeling like so positive about what was about to happen. And I would, feel a wave come on, and I'd stand up and, lean over the dining room table and just kind of sway my hips and breathe through it and sit back down and continue eating my grapefruit. And or my husband would stand behind me and I'd lean into him. So it was like really lovely and really cozy. And throughout the day, my waves were like getting more sporadic, and it was clear that I wasn't going to have that short birth that I had envisioned for myself.
Well, it was
which
shorter
was
than the first.
No, it was longer.
Was
by
it?
half an hour. Yeah. Just a little bit.
Darn, I thought it was shorter. Okay.
So anyway, I had originally scheduled an appointment for later that day, and I called to cancel, and doctor called last minute, literally 10 minutes before my appointment was supposed to be, and said, come back in for a stress test. Because at this point I was 39 weeks and 4 days, or 39 weeks and 5 days. So I went in, and I was on the external monitors, and my son had 1 heart deceleration. So he said, you have to go to labor and delivery and have more extensive stress tests, meaning an ultrasound where they measure, how frequently he's moving, how he's breathing, the amniotic fluid levels, so on and so forth. So, and his heart rate, watching his heart. And after that, so throughout this, I'm having waves. They had increased to about every 7 minutes or so. And during this time, I could tell that the ultrasound wasn't going that well. And so it was kind of stressing me out. That was the most stressed out that I was throughout this process. But, as the waves would come, I'd just tell everyone to stop talking and stop touching my belly. And I'd just hang my arms limp on the sides and I'd just breathe through it. And then, we'd continue on. So the midwife comes in and says, after all this is said and done, and she says to me, so everything except for the amniotic fluid levels are total crap. And I think we need to do an induction. And so I received that information and I just tried not to go into the fear zone and just receive the information without judgment, without anything, just receive it and, make a decision from that point. The whole time my husband was being really communicative with me and we were both trying to stay positive no matter what, So, she left, there's a lot of time in between conversations. And, I was still hoping okay, we'll do a cervical check and then they'll place a balloon of some sort and I'll have a mechanical induction. So, we went to our room at the birthing center and she checked me and I was 2 centimeters. And she's like, that's really good news. Let's use a Cook balloon, which puts, I hadn't heard of it at the time, but it puts the balloon above and below your cervix, and that pressure on your cervix helps you to efface and dilate. So she left, and during that time, I just continued working through waves. And then I was able to get into hypnosis a little bit more, because up to that point, I was really just using relaxation techniques and, speaking mantra in my own head, but not listening to my tracks. And it was honestly difficult. I was 2 centimeters dilated and it was way more, I want to say bubble of peace for the Hypnobabies people that will listen. I'm going to use some terminology that's not Hypnobabies kosher, but it was painful. It was painful. So, once I got into hypnosis, it was everything just became exponentially easier. So when they came to place the Cook balloon, I had dilated another centimeter and she said, let's just see how you labor on your own. And, we'll just continue checking in. Now, my son's heart was still dipping essentially with every birthing wave that I had. So on the outside of my own personal experience, there was our wonderful nurse that we fell in love with that would, try so desperately to move the external monitors because they had originally placed a Monica and it wasn't picking up his heart rate enough. So they were having to move the ones around all the time to try and get his heart back on the map. And, this is also really common that you have this microscope on a baby's heart, and there are natural peaks and dips, but it was really dipping quite a bit, and they were worried about placental decline. So with his gestational age, so it was all I could do to just stay out of the fear zone, and in my tracks, it was so wonderful because you're hearing this constant feed of positive self-talk. And I would hear what I needed to hear and latch on to certain things, and attach them to my breath, meaning, for a good majority of my birthing time, I would breathe in deeply and say, Pen is safe, my son's name. And I'd breathe out and say, I am safe. I used that for a huge portion of my birthing time, because I knew on the outside that there was like shuffling, there was like some stress, and I was letting them deal with that and just staying in the calm, cool, loving zone. Because I knew that was the only thing that I had within my control to help the situation. So, man, it's hard to tell a birth story because you're so removed as well from like what's actually happening. I guess at this point, they continued to check me. They give me cervical checks only because it was really touch and go. At one point, our nurse came in and she was prepped for the OR, and she said they're talking about a cesarean because of his heart dipping so much with every wave. And so when she left the room, my husband came over to me, and there's a change of plans, like script, so that you can process the information and you can deal with fears that you have associated with this change of plans, put them in a box, and then put the box in a closet so you could deal with that at another time, but know that they're there. Anyway, and I had resolved to get a cesarean. I said, if this is going to be risky for him, like, I know the love of my daughter, and I can't imagine if something happened to my son. I don't know him yet, but I know I'm going to love him. Like, you know, so I just decided, okay, let's schedule the cesarean. So I told my midwife, and she was like, okay, I'll get the doctor and we could talk about it. And I feel so grateful, so grateful that without even me noticing it at the time, they both steered me away from that and towards, you know, having an unmedicated vaginal birth as I wanted. And
how did they do that?
Well, they said, you know, we're not in an emergency yet. And we really think with a lot of positional changes, we can keep him getting enough oxygen, because in between birthing waves, his heart rate was beautiful. So they said with IV fluids and potentially an amnio infusion to give him a little extra wiggle room in there.
Buoyancy, yeah.
Some buoyancy, that he would be doing a little bit better. So I was like, okay, I'm on board. So they gave me a cervical check at that point, and I was 6 centimeters, and I was like, okay, I can, let's work with this. So from that point forward, I went really deep into hypnosis. And I don't know what was happening outside of, you know, my own body, but all I could do was breathe. And this is where it gets so fascinating for me, because, you know, it's really interesting because you're in this sensational experience that's bigger than anything you've ever felt in your life. And so you're very much involved in that. And then at the same time, I felt completely removed, like I was witness to this experience in my life. So similar to in a meditation, when you can kind of separate your own personal experience in the moment, and you can look in as an outsider and see how you're responding to this physical and mental challenge that you're bumped up against. So it was simultaneously the most present and the most embodied I have ever felt in my life. And I know I'll get emotional because it was just it was such a profound experience. I was in the most pain I had ever been in, but yet I felt completely peaceful and 100% still. I just wasn't allowing myself to respond negatively to it. And the only way I could work through it was a deep use of my breath. And it was in the moment that I realized the functional use of your breathing during birth that I would have never really truly understood unless I was there and in it. And what I felt was when I relaxed my whole body as like completely as I could, every time I breathed in, my diaphragm would push down and everything would pressurize down into my uterus. And I would feel, literally I could feel my baby dilating my cervix. Like when I was that still and that present to what was happening, I could actually feel that happen. It was mind-boggling. And then at the same time, it was pretty darn uncomfortable. I'll use that word, but it's an understatement to say the least. So, I wrote down some of the things that the mantra and the positive talk that really helped me in the moment as well, because I had to latch onto it because it was what really allowed me to go through it. So things like and it's just the woman who founded the Hypnobabies, Carrie Tushoff. It's her speaking the whole time, and so I know her voice so well now. One more time and believe it with all your heart. I deserve to have a much easier and more comfortable birthing, which is yes, I do believe that. So it's so important to hear it. Things like this: your cervix effacing and dilating quickly and comfortably. Open, 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 deeply relax. With each moment that goes by, you become more confident and more calm. These are really beautiful things to be hearing and breathing with and working with in your body. This one was really helpful for me. Your muscles becoming completely limp and loose. Your face and hands always completely relaxed. So calm, so confident, so wonderfully relaxed, and you are so safe. So these kinds of things were just beautiful to hear. And it made you feel held in a very challenging experience. So the thing about Hypnobabies is that they use this, it's called medical grade hypnoanesthesia. So it's for people who are allergic to anesthesia and they need to still get surgery or dental work. And they can work with a hypnotherapist to essentially remove pain. And that's what you're training yourself to be able to do. And it doesn't work for everyone. I wasn't able to remove pain, but I was able to learn so many coping techniques so that I could handle whatever sensations I was experiencing. And they give you a lot of ways to reframe, quote unquote pain. And one of the ways was, and this I've repeated a lot, each wave is just like the squeeze of a blood pressure cuff. Which is funny if you've gone through, a birth and you can recall what it might feel like, because it's not like the squeeze of a blood pressure cuff, but it's similar in some ways. So yeah. I would latch onto that. But so I had this beautiful, positive feedback happening the whole time. And I dilated really quickly once I was deep in hypnosis. So the last time my midwife checked me, again, because it was touch and go and they were still deciding how this should move forward, she said, you're almost 9 centimeters. She said, it'll either be another 10 minutes or 2 hours before you start to feel like you're going to push. And she left the room. And the very next wave that I had, at this point, I was sounding through waves. I didn't realize at the time that I was in transformation, as they call it, or transition. And it was definitely the most intense. It was just ing through my waves, but it was that singular next contraction, and I started to spontaneously push. So that was lightning fast, happened so quickly. And then as far as Hypnobabies says, during pushing, it's mother directed and really relaxed. And you essentially let your body do the pushing, like really calm, really comfortable, really gentle. But after maybe my second push, my midwife said, Kat, this baby really needs to come out. Can you get him out in the next push? And I was like, okay, you got to wrap your head around this, Kat. You got to like rise to the occasion. You got to work with this. And it was the exact opposite of my peaceful, calm, still birth up to 10 centimeters. I was like primal screaming. The sounds coming out of my body were like nothing I have ever heard before. And it was the hardest thing I have ever done. Like, it was so wild. It was like to experience your body, doing something that you've never felt before. Like, it was the biggest sensation I've ever felt. And then you have to put your power behind that as well to try and move a baby out of your body. And I didn't know it, but Penn's cord was wrapped around his neck and his chest. It was kind of on like a seat belt. And that's why, the pressure of every birthing wave was just, squeezing the umbilical cord, and he wasn't getting enough oxygen. It also kept his head tucked. So once he was passing over my pubic bone, he couldn't lift his chin up.
The little turtleneck, that's what I call it. Kind of emerges like a turtle.
Totally. So he couldn't make that action. And so I had some pretty significant tearing. When I finally did get him out, I was pushing for about 30 minutes, and, which was the same with my daughter. But it was, with my daughter, I allowed my body to labor down, but I was still on an epidural. So I could feel sensation, but not. This was like nothing I have ever experienced. And it was the hardest I ever had to work with all my effort, all my focus. And I did it. And it was just the most incredible thing. It was like the most profound thing is just how proud of myself I am to have, been able to meet a challenge like that. And what I always wanted for myself. And it happened. And it's like pretty incredible. And then I have a baby at the end of it that I like absolutely love and adore. And it's just surreal. It's just been like such a beautiful, beautiful experience since then. I feel like profoundly impacted, and what a beautiful way to set myself up for a career as a doula. That's how I feel, just like so empowered and so proud. And I have like a new belief in what we're able to do when you frame your mind in a positive way, and are present to a challenge and a situation. It was like a practice in self-control and being fully present at the same time. So it was so wild and so important in my life.
I have no words. I have tears, but I have no words. I'm so honored that you shared that with me. As I was listening, I just was in awe. It is so profound and so raw and so beautiful. I can't thank you enough for being brave enough to put yourself out there and share this, because I'm so excited for those that might have a lot of fear, because, it can be birth. We don't know what it is. We don't know how it's going to turn. And just that you shared that you had fear and that it was hard, and you found your way. You hit that wall. You scaled that wall. You found something so deep inside yourself to get yourself to the other side. Because whether it's birth or parenthood or another struggle, so many of us hit that wall, and we need to find something to, like you said, like that primal, like those sounds. Wow.
And the coping mechanisms. Like, I mean, honestly, I feel I was shocked with what it looked like from the outside when I saw videos that my husband took of me birthing. And, you know, you would have no idea what kind of a challenge it actually was. But I mean, I feel so grateful that I'm committed to this, you know, path with Hypnobabies, because honestly, I just, based on my sensations at 2 centimeters without hypnosis versus going through transformation or transition with hypnosis, it was like night and day. And I'm really excited to share that with any listeners because it was profoundly helpful. And I think it, you know, has potential to help so many people.
Yeah.
So it's
so exciting.
It's just been an incredible experience. So I feel so honored to have been able to share it with you in this community because, like I said, I've been listening to your podcast religiously since you started, and you know, we've stayed connected over the 10 years that we've known each other. And
Tears.
Special. I know.
Oh, thank you. I'm just, thank you. I'm so honored and I'm so excited for other people to hear this. And I'm so excited for you. I'm just so
thank you.
Happy for you.
Well, you know what it feels like to meet a challenge like that.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is literally a wall that one has to scale. And something that popped in my head is that you're saying, like on the videos where you look so calm, but yet you had this internal turmoil that you were struggling with. It just made me also step back and think how many times we see somebody and we don't know what they're going through on the inside.
Totally.
And that makes me think a lot also about the postpartum period.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like we just don't know what's going on. And I guess to approach things with kindness and people with kindness. I know that's just kind of popped into my head.
Totally. Like what an important, you know, role for life.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my gosh. I have so much going on in my brain. All right. We need a little quick break. I have to reground myself. When we come back, I'd love for you to offer, you've been now through 2 very different births. You've been in the pregnancy world. You've been a parent for a while. If there's one final tip or piece of advice that you would like to pass on to those that are either in the midst of pregnancy or themselves are a new parent, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Okay. So what's on the tip of your tongue? What's rolling around in your head?
Well, I think, you know, my experience and the way I talk about how I prepared for this kind of speaks for itself as far as how I would offer somebody advice about how to prepare, because this was so helpful for me personally. Not that it's helpful for everyone, but it was for me. But I think more than anything, it's like, even after my first experience, the most profound part of the whole experience is the love that you're going to have when your baby's in your arms. And not that should ever negate your own personal experience and how you feel, you know, supported or unsupported in a birth experience. But, you know, the thing that really fills me up is like what I'm going through right now getting to know my son and seeing my daughter interact with my son. And
how is she liking that? How is she liking being a big sister?
She's a really proud big sister. And she'll say all the time, she'll wake up in the morning and we'll say, do you want to go downstairs and see Penn? And she'll say, yeah, I'm his big sister. It's really sweet. And I'm
so happy for you and your family.
So she's such a proud sister. But I guess the most important thing is to focus on, that huge love high that you're about to get right around the corner.
Oh, I'm so happy for your family. I truly am. All right. So where can people find your work? Because I know that you're still teaching. Well, not right this moment. You're not teaching yoga, but you will, and your doula work. It's so exciting.
So it's a big year of transitions geographically.
That's right,
we'll be moving to Chicago at some point really soon.
How soon?
One sec. Really soon, probably in the next 2 months or so. As soon as I'm healed and we have a handle on 2 kids. So until at a certain point, I'll be teaching digitally again. Not sure when that will be. But you can find me at my website, catacquavivayoga.com, or on Instagram, catacquaviva. And,
I'm so excited for you. You have such this broad path ahead of you, moving, new family, adding all the doula work. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you for being brave enough and raw enough to share your story. I appreciate it so much.
Thanks for giving me the space to process and get that out. It's wonderful.
Yay. All right. I hope to see you in some postnatal when you're ready, when your healing has given you the permission, your body has given you the permission.
I'll be back. Don't worry.
Yay. All right. Be well.
Take care, Deb.
This has been an episode of Yoga Birth Babies, produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. I'm Deb Flaschenberg. Thanks for listening.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.